Janet Yellen moves up her warning to global financial crisis if the U.S. doesn't just come back and give Democrats what they want in the form of a debt ceiling increase with no strings attached. So we'll talk just a bit about that and where that goes and what happens with that. In other news, the March for Life has reemerged. In fact, this is the first March for Life post-Roe, so we'll talk just a bit about that, including Tony Dungy now being labeled a right-wing extremist for attending the March for Life in favor, not in protest. Joe Biden says he has no regrets on the handling of classified documents in video of a press conference which he attended, which, again tells me that they might be trying to throw him under the bus, so we'll be talking about that. And justices were not required to sign sworn affidavits in the leak investigation, even though all of the employees of the Supreme Court, other than them, were forced to sign these same affidavits. It is going to be all this and more, plus live chat at the end of the show. Definitely looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say. And of course, I got more votes than Kevin McCarthy. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Rage in the Streets, that is right, the soundtrack of Streets of Rage coming in on our lo-fi background music that we have that is completely copyright free, so we can continue to use it over on YouTube. Good evening, welcome to your evening news. This is Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we've got a fairly moderate amount of news to get to here tonight, talking about David Crosby, talking about the debt ceiling once again. There's going to be the big fight going on, but some positive news tonight. I do hope that Mr. Scott is watching for this one here, because we will actually be talking about the March for Our Lives, which I do think, March for Life, not March for Our Lives. That was the co-opted version that the leftoids who want to ban your ability to defend yourself took back up here. But we'll be talking about the March for Life as well and its return, and even Tony Dungy being thrown under the bus while he is there. So we'll go over some of that as well. CNN airing a damning report that Biden did interact with Hunter's business dealings. We'll probably watch a good fair amount of that video, depending on where we're at for time. I do have that towards the end of the stream here today, so we'll go over some of that. But I know that was one of the big ones that all of our paid shill friends over on Twitter were citing over here, saying, "Oh boy, oh CNN it's in the tank with Republicans, and they're going out here and not giving Democrats a fair shake. Oh boy." Yeah, imagine somebody doing journalism and people thinking that it's automatically bad because it doesn't favor the candidate that you like. Plus, we will go over some of your live chat here tonight as well, because it's Friday. It's time to give back. Again, I do remind you that we might actually go back and move this to another night. I'll talk about it, I think, a bit in the Discord later on. I'll ask a couple people what they think about all this here, because I do want to give back. But I mean, as normal, this is typically for everybody else. This is date night. This is the night where people go back out and do stuff. This is the beginning of the weekend here. I am doing this because I promised an evening news podcast every day of the week for everybody here. So that's why I'm here for you guys. But I do want to make sure that I get the reward out for people who do come back and watch as well. So There may be some changes in the works here coming up, we will see, but that's what we have going on over here on Contemporary. Before we get started, let's make sure everybody goes and checks out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more, as we come together to try to bring you a better news experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. For so long, all of our news and all of our headlines and all of our culture has come from people who go on the TV, who wear suits that cost more than our houses, who live in houses that we could never even dream to afford. That's coming from Hollywood, that's coming from the mainstream news media, and that's even coming from our government. And we can do better than that, folks. Get your news and get your culture from people who have had to make some of the same decisions that you have. And when I talk about this, I used to talk about the Daily Wire too, coming in trying to get into the space. And me trying to come back up and build a better music, movie, and video game studio than even they are, because at the time I thought that they were outside of the normal sphere. And yet the revelations that we had this week do appear that they seem to be right in bed with the same people who are making these same big decisions. I mean, I guess you had to know it here. Harvard-educated lawyer who goes and works for Hollywood figures and conservatives and everything else. You got to figure that these are some of the wealthy elite as well. You kind of had to know it going on, but we do hope to bring you that better news experience, that better studio experience, that better video game studio experience. Hey, now that Mr. Behavior's out of school, I think it's time for him and I to sit down and have a conversation, see what we can make work. But we will see what happens with that. We will see where that goes, and let's get started into the news for the day. We will start out where we always do, with the finance. Looking in at the Dow to start, the Dow actually having a winning day after a losing week. And even with all the problems that the stock market had during the week, the NASDAQ did still win for a third week in a row, of the Dow ending the day at 375.49. That is up 330 US dollars, not US dollars, this is the stock market still, 330.93 points, or just about 1%. So it's looking good for those of you who have 401ks. Some of what's driving this, and some of this we're not going to go over today, even though I did almost have it up on the stack, is the fact that we are now looking at housing prices starting to rebound here, which, it blows for me, but we're starting to see, because we saw a minor shift downward in the interest rate. So we'll see what's happening with that and where that goes. Looking in at the Bitcoin, well, for those of you who have Bitcoin, congratulations. You had a 7.4% increase in the amount of Bitcoin that you had today when compared to US dollars. $22,644 US dollars and 80 US cents is what your Bitcoin ended at per coin today. That is up 1,560 US dollars and 80 US cents on the Bitcoin. So congratulations for those of you who decided to hold and not just sell off as soon as you saw turbulence in the markets. And I know that Ron is not a big one for he's not a big one for where it goes, and he's not a big one for the Bitcoin, but I know that sometimes we still have to come back and look and see what goes on there. Looking in at your gas prices over in the Madison areas, looks like we have started to see a little bit of increase. 325s are starting to circulate around here. We've still got a couple 292s. A couple of those quick trips are stubborn and they will not move off of where they were at, but 325s, mostly across the rest of the quick trips across the area. The Amoco on the Isthmus is still remaining at 306. The BP leaving on the Beltline actually was taken off of this list, oddly enough. I wonder what happened there. I hope they didn't close. That was actually a good BP to go to. I used to go to that one. But otherwise, mostly unchanged except for a handful of quick trips around the area, and we will see what happens there. Let's grab one from CNBC to talk about the markets. Stocks close higher Friday. NASDAQ notches third straight week of wins from Tanaya Makil and Carmen Reinecke. Stocks rallied on Friday to finish the week strong after briefly losing the momentum of the January rally. The Dow added 330 points, or 1%, to close at 33,375.49, while the S&P advanced 1.89% to 3972.61. Both indices snapped a three-day losing streak. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq Composite rose 2.66% with help from Netflix and Alphabet to end the day at 11,140.43. I think some of the Netflix coming up here is the fact that I think they they might actually be turning the page on woke programming. Now, I say this having just watched Is It Cake? Well, a couple episodes of Is It Cake and seeing just a little bit of the wokeness still there, but I took a chance last night and I watched the first 3 episodes of that 90s show and was actually impressed. I can't even lie and say, no, I still think it's bad because it's Netflix. No, I was actually impressed. The chemistry is there. The casting was there. I'm only 3 episodes in. They have a whole lot of time to woke it back up. And there's a gay character in there. But his being gay is not... It's not central to drive the story. It's just... It happens to be there. So... The humor is mostly the same. I didn't find myself laughing as much as I did with the original 70s show, but the laughs were still there. I still got a couple really good belly laughs out of it. And of course, I sung the praises of Wednesday, and even Cobra Kai, which I started back going down again, is remaining in its non-woke fashion. So I think they did Cuties and a few other big woke things, realized that nobody wants to see that kind of crap, and cleaned up their act. I can't say that this is going to stay. I can't. But it looks good for them right now. Maybe they'll do something with this. We'll see. All the major averages are still in positive territory for the year. We're having a more emotional reaction than expected, said Jeff Kilberg, founder and CEO of KKM Financial. A lot of people got so pessimistic that we saw parabolic moves to kick off the year. Now, as expected, the markets aren't going in a straight line. We're finding a better way to continue to move and have higher lows. He added, the higher lows put a bit of confidence in the bulls. However, the technicals are still favoring the bears and selling rallies. Investors continue to monitor earnings reports, and mega cap shares led the market higher. Netflix gained about 8.5% after posting more subscribers than expected. Even though its quarterly earnings missed analyst estimates, Alphabet rose more than 5% after the company announced it will lay off 12,000 employees. We'll be talking about that later on as well. So, the market's looking good. This is not official financial advice. I would still be wary of entering new stocks right now and hold your 401ks into something that's a little bit more stable. Gold, metals, etc. But, of course, your financial advisor will know your platform and your position much better than I will, a person on the internet yelling into a microphone. So, do keep that in mind. This is not official financial advice, but go check with somebody who can give you official financial advice and ask him whether new stocks are right for you or whether it's time to sit and wait and hold out on platinum, gold, silver, etc. I've got one more in finance before we get into news from CBS News. Markets climb to close out week despite debt ceiling concerns. You know what? This is video, so I might actually just skip this one. Yeah, let's hold off on this one. Because, I mean, if this was listing... The one thing I do like about this being here, though, is that they do point out the fact that a lot of the mainstreams, and IBD especially, didn't want to talk about the elephant in the room and the fact that the debt ceiling is, like, we're approaching it, we're there. And the government is having to struggle to come back out and make sure that we don't lose our credibility rating, and we'll be talking about what that means later on in the show. And that should be driving pessimism in the markets right now, especially given the fact that something bad could happen for this. It's the elephant in the room that none of the other major financials wanted to talk about, and CBS did point that out, so we'll be talking about that in just a bit. But we've got to throw our F's in the chat. We have got to put our F's in the chat today for David Crosby. From the Associated Press, reports David Crosby, rock star and CSNY co-founder, dies. From Robert Jablon, which again means that I will never be able to see the original lineup of Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Sometimes Young live. Which is a shame. I know CSNY caught a lot of crap, rightfully so, for their stance and their position on the Rogan controversy on Netflix, especially because they were led by Neil Young to do so. I like that they use the same notation that I do about Crosby, Stills, Nash. Ongoing troubadour in Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Sometimes Young. CSN, Sometimes Why. I was a big fan of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young when I was younger, and even their political views didn't deter me from that. Hell, the reason, and I still haven't taken the time to learn because the instrument is incredibly expensive, but I still have a desire before I die to learn how to play pedal steel because of the song Teach Your Children Well. As much country as I was exposed to when I was younger, the pedal steel didn't stick in my mind until I heard that song. And I just fell in love with the sound, and I do want to learn how to play that instrument at one point. Come up with $3,000 and buy a pedal steel. I also want to learn how to play banjo. I can do guitar and bass. I could probably do banjo. Violin too, I would love to learn how to play that. Anything stringed. I like those. David Crosby, the brash rock musician who evolved from a baby-faced harmony singer with the Byrds to a mustachioed hippie superstar and ongoing troubadour in Crosby, Stills, Nash and Sometimes Young, has died at 81. Several media outlets reported on Thursday. The New York Times, a former newspaper, reported, based on a text message from Crosby's sister-in-law, that the musician died Wednesday night. Several media outlets reported Crosby's death, citing anonymous sources. The Associated Press was unable to reach Crosby's representatives and his widow. So, and this is a guy who, health-wise, did kind of lead a hard life. Crosby underwent a liver transplant in '94 after decades of drug use and survived diabetes, hep C, and heart surgery in his 70s. While he only wrote a handful of widely known songs, the witty and ever-opinionated Crosby was on the front lines of the cultural revolutions of the 60s and 70s before he, of course, went back on and started to support the machine in the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. Whether triumphing with Stephen Stills, Graham Nash, and Neil Young on stage at Woodstock, testifying on behalf of a hirsute generation in his anthem Almost Cut My Hair, or mourning the assassination of Bobby Kennedy in Long Time Gone. He was a founder and focus of the Los Angeles rock music community, from which such performers as the Eagles, hate the Eagles. They tell me that's from a movie. Stephen Ignoramus quotes that line all the time. I effing hate the Eagles. I don't know what movie that's from, but they tell me it's from a movie. And Jackson Browne later emerged. He was a twinkly-eyed hippie patriarch, the inspiration for Dennis Hopper's long-haired stoner in Easy Rider. He advocated for peace, but was unrepentant loudmouth who practiced personal warfare, and acknowledged that many of the musicians he worked with no longer spoke to him. Crosby was colorful and unpredictable character, wore a mandrake, the magician cape, didn't get along with too many people, and had a beautiful voice. That last part I can actually agree with. An architect of harmony, Bob Dylan wrote in his 2004 memoir, Chronicles Volume 1. Wait, that was Bob Dylan? I think I have to read that like this. Hey, man, Crosby is a fella for a big unpredictable character. Crosby's drug use left him bloated, broke, and alienated. He kicked the addiction in the 85 and 86 during a year's prison stretch in Texas on drugs and weapon charges. The conviction eventually was overturned. I've always said that I picked up a guitar as a shortcut to sex, and after my first joint, I was sure that if everyone smoked dope, there'd be an end to war. I'm pretty sure that that's the official LP position as well. Crosby said in his 1988 autobiography, Long Time Gone, co-written by Carl Gottlieb, I was right about the sex, I was wrong about or when it came to drugs. He lived years longer than even expected, and in his 70s enjoyed a creative renaissance, issuing several solo albums or collaborating with others, including his son James Raymond, who became a favorite songwriter partner. So, we send him off to hopefully find peace in whatever he believes. I hope it's Christianity, because then he can be saved at the end, given his political positions. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I do hope so. I hope that he finds peace in that, and I hope that his family also comes together and can grieve the appropriate amount of time, and then move on and be thankful for the lives that they had with him. A couple of memoirs coming off of that. Neil Young pays tribute to David Crosby. Love You Man. From Allie Rosenblum. Legendary rocker Neil Young has paid tribute to former Crosby, Stills, and Nash bandmate David Crosby. David is gone, but this music lives on. The soul of CSNY, David's voice and energy were at the heart of our band. The statement, posted to Young's website, read, Crosby's family announced Thursday that he died at age 81. His great songs stood for what we believed in, and it was always fun and exciting when we got to play together, Young's tribute continued. We had so many great times, especially in the early years. Crosby was a very supportive friend in my early life. As we bit off big pieces of our experience together, David was the catalyst of many, many things. Yeah, you're not kidding, Mr. Scott. 81 is a damn good run for a rock star, especially a rock star from the 60s. Young concluded, Thanks, David, for your spirit and songs. Love you, man. I remember the best times. I hope not. I'm going to be completely honest. Throughout my 20s, a lot of the best times that I have, I probably can't remember. I think Ozzy is about that same age, too. Let's find that out. By the way, if you guys are lurking or you see other people lurking today, let them know that at the end of the show, I will be reading some of the live chat and see what you guys say. There might be some spice I have to skip over, but I will be reading, hopefully, the majority of it. John Michael Osborne, better known as Ozzy. Ozzy is 74. He was born December 3rd, 1948. So we have one tribute from Neil Young and David Crosby's former wife, who decided that she liked girls better, also speaks out on this. Melissa Etheridge speaks out on David Crosby's death. He gave me the gift of family. The late musical legend was a sperm donor for two of Melissa Etheridge's children. I thought that they were they not married? I thought they were married briefly as well. I may have that wrong. By staff author. Melissa Etheridge mourned the death of the late David Crosby on Thursday. The 81-year-old was the sperm donor who helped Etheridge conceive. I am grieving the loss of my friend and Bailey's and Beckett's biological father, David, Etheridge wrote. He gave me the gift of family. I will forever be grateful to him, Son, Django, and wife, Jan. His music and legacy will inspire many generations to come, a true treasure. The Crosby, Stills, and Nash singer provided the sperm for Etheridge and her then partner, Julie Cypher's children, Bailey, 25, and Beckett, who died from opioid addiction in 2020. Etheridge revealed in early 2000 that Crosby was indeed the donor for her and Cypher's kids in an interview with CNN's Larry King Live. Yeah? I thought that they were married. I really did. Because I thought that she was married to a man. I'm almost positive she was married to a man before she came out. And I thought it was David. I might have that wrong. There is a good chance for that. But, David, you were an inspiration. Again, one of the people who inspired me to pursue some music. And thank you for all that you did. Even if you did turn around and go woke at the very end. Alright, let's talk about some news. From CNN, Yellen warns of global financial crisis if U.S. debt limit agreement isn't reached. Because, of course, Janet Yellen wants you to be petrified and afraid of this outcome that's probably largely not going to affect you, especially if you watch this program, because I'm sure that you have a lot of canned goods and are prepared for the government to come and shut down and for you to have to ride it out for a couple weeks. From Megan Vasquez. Oh, is she going to talk? Is she going to talk? Let's read. We'll come back up to the top for video in just a bit. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen on Friday warned of the widespread global effects that could be felt if the federal government exhausts extraordinary measures and fails to raise the debt ceiling, telling CNN's Christine Amanpour about the ways everyday Americans could face stark consequences. Yellen's warning comes after the U.S. on Thursday hit its $31.4 trillion debt limit set by Congress, forcing the Treasury Department to start taking extraordinary measures to keep the government paying its bills. While those newly deployed extraordinary measures are largely behind-the-scenes accounting maneuvers, Yellen told Amanpour that the actual date at which we would no longer be able to use these measures is quite uncertain, but it could conceivably come as early as June. Let's listen.
First, I want to ask you about something else really top of your mind, and that is the debt ceiling. You informed Congress that the debt ceiling has been reached and that you have to employ extraordinary measures to keep the whole thing going. How long can you do that for? What kind of extraordinary measures?
Well, extraordinary measures involve things like the Civil Service Trust Fund and investments that we make in government securities for employees in the government-funded programs. And I indicated in my letter to Congress that we feel confident they can last until early June. But beyond that, there's no guarantee. The actual date at which we would no longer be able to use these measures is quite uncertain, but it could conceivably come as early June.
Okay, so I want to just quote that letter that you are referring to just a little bit. Failure to meet the government's obligations would cause irreparable harm to the United States economy, the livelihoods of all Americans, and global financial stability. So, in brief, what kind of irreparable harm, and particularly for American households, how would average American households experience this?
The United States is a country that since 1789 has always paid all of its bills. And the knowledge that the U.S. government can be trusted and counted on to do that underlies the foundations, really, of the entire global financial system. U.S. Treasury securities are the safest investment on the planet, and we would certainly experience, at a minimum, a downgrading of our debt. If that happened, our borrowing costs would increase, and every American would see that their borrowing costs would increase as well. On top of that, a failure to make payments that are due, whether it's to bondholders or to Social Security recipients or to our military, would undoubtedly cause a recession in the U.S. economy and could cause a global financial crisis. It would certainly undermine the role of the dollar as a reserve currency that is used in transactions all over the world. And Americans...
Okay, that's enough out of you. Yeah, you've been yelling and screaming this fear porn since the last time we had to go through this. They yell and scream this fear porn every single time they talk about the debt. And I have yet to see... Well, first off, there are possibilities that this is actually accurate because there are way too many people who are too goddamn dependent on the government. Where they talk about Social Security and Medicare payments rather than having your own retirement and relying on family, which some of these people are going to have to do, and it's going to suck, by the way. And the American currency might go away, and your borrowing costs might go up, and you might have to live within your means for a little while. These people. I can't stand these people. CBS. Trying to make all of this hit home. Debt ceiling. 3 ways your finances could be affected, from Amy Pinchy. The so-called debt ceiling, the amount the U.S. government can borrow to honor its spending obligations, may seem like an abstract political issue for congressional leaders to deal with, but millions of Americans could suffer very real-world financial hits if the conflict drags on. On Thursday, the federal government reached a limit of $31.4 trillion, prompting U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen to invoke extraordinary measures that will allow the country to avoid an unprecedented default for at least the next few months. Because the U.S. is considered the bedrock of the global financial system, partly due to its stability, a default could undermine economies worldwide. At home, many Americans would likely see a decline in their wealth as the stock market recoiled. Just like we saw last year, bringing down the value of their 401k plans. Social Security beneficiaries and others dependent on the government programs might not get their monthly checks because, of course, that's going to be the big fear. And once again, when the executive branch gets the choice, when they want to hit home and drive home how evil the Republicans were for not budging off of this, that's probably going to be the first thing they go after. Is your Social Security. Look, see what the Republicans did? Not raising the debt ceiling can have significant consequences on the economy and on us, Jill Schlesinger, CBS News business analyst, said on CBS Mornings. We could likely see things like delaying Social Security checks. Maybe you won't get your tax refund on time. Well, once again, I remind you that if you depend on your tax refund to get you by, you're doing life wrong. That interest-free loan to the government that you give every year. So, here are 3 ways Americans could feel the impact of the debt ceiling crisis on their personal finances. Remember, CBS wants you to be absolutely afraid, terrified, quake for the people at CNN that aren't actually going to have to go through any of this. Stock swoon. If there's one thing the stock market dislikes, it's uncertainty. The longer negotiations over the debt ceiling continue in Congress, the more caution will be voiced by Wall Street about the potential for a worst-case scenario outcome, an unprecedented default on the U.S. debt. The last time Congress had a close call with the debt limit was in 2011 when the federal debt stood at $14 trillion, and Republicans agreed to a deal to raise the debt ceiling just days before a default. But investors were rattled even without a default, with brinksmanship causing stocks to plunge. The last time we had a big impasse, the stock market went down by 14% over 4 weeks, Schlesinger noted, referring to the 2011 negotiations. That would add to investors' financial woes following last year's stock market rout, when the S&P 500 plunged more than 19%. Surging borrowing costs, because if we're not the bedrock here, you know that they're going to go back and raise the base interest rate. Let's see, stocks weren't the only financial asset impacted during the 2011 debt crisis because of the conflict, which caused the cost of borrowing to rise. Debt rating agency Standard & Poor's downgraded U.S. debt for the first time. The lower rating undermined investor confidence in federal notes. The default would likely push the rates even higher, said Johns Hopkins University business lecturer Kathleen Day. The cost to borrow for homes, cars, and credit cards would explode, she said in an email. In short, default would cause mayhem. Oh no! You might not see house prices rise well above their value. Most Wall Street analysts and political pundits consider an outright default unlikely. Still, such an outcome cannot be ruled out and would come at a time when consumers are already facing higher borrowing costs due to the Federal Reserve's series of interest rate hikes last year. And of course, the big fear that they will always try to hammer down your throat every time that there is a problem with the government. They might come for your Social Security and Medicare. I am so sick of that argument. I am so deathly sick of that argument. Dude, there's not going to be Social Security left by the time I get to that age. Miss me with that crap. Miss me with that crap. In a rare moment of clarity lately, because he has been making some of the wrong missteps lately, and we'll actually have one of those later on in this as well. But the Donald weighed in on the debt ceiling fight. Trump to GOP. Don't touch Medicare or Social Security in debt ceiling fight. From Meredith McGraw. Former President Trump issued a warning to Republican lawmakers on Friday. Don't lay a finger on entitlement programs as part of the debt ceiling showdown with the White House. Under no circumstances should Republicans vote to cut a single penny from Medicare or Social Security, Trump said in a video message. Will they show me the video message? No, they will not. I didn't even realize this was a video message. Will they link the video message? The 2-minute video, which goes on to lambaste President Biden over the migration crisis at the southern border, is a part of a series of policy announcements put out by his campaign, and it comes amid growing brinksmanship between congressional Republicans and the White House over raising the nation's debt limit. I want to see if that video is out here. The Hill has a video about it. Let's see what they come up with. No, that's just on the headlines. I would be willing to bet that they probably scrubbed this from the internet. Let me look at one other thing. No, they don't have it either. Of course, nobody's ever going to let this video come out and see the light of day. I probably should have done better research to that before I went. Republicans have vowed not to raise the federal government's borrowing capacity unless Biden makes steep cuts to federal spending, potentially impacting social insurance programs like Social Security and Medicare. No. Trump's video is a warning to his fellow party members not to go there. Instead, he suggests targeting foreign aid, cracking down on migration, ending left-wing gender programs for our military, and billions spent on climate extremism. Cut waste and fraud and abuse everywhere that we can find it, and there's plenty of it. It's the worst. But do not cut benefits to our seniors. They worked and paid for their entire lives. Save Social Security. Don't destroy it. And I mean, he points out the absolute correct position on this, but again, this is Politico, so they are going to come back out here and say that any cut to the government is going to involve a steep cut to Social Security and Medicare. And I remind you that there are a lot of places you can make cuts before you even get close to Social Security and Medicare. That should be like the last thing you go after. One of the last things. Do I agree that Social Security and Medicare need to be overhauled and redone? Yes, probably. But if we're negotiating, I would leave that out for now. So, a rare moment of clarity. A little bit more financial news here, coming from the Daily Wire. IRS has not yet finalized how middle class will be affected by $80 billion windfall. Of course, talking about the massive pay raise that the IRS got from the not the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, from the, what was the name of the act? I don't even remember anymore. From Ben Ziesloft. A report from the IRS released last week indicated that officials are devoting much of the agency's recent funding of windfall towards audits, even as the degree to which the actions will impact everyday taxpayers remains uncertain. The Inflation Reduction Act, that's what it was. President Brandon's Inflation Reduction Act recently approved $80 billion for the tax enforcement agency, Janet Yellen previously said the funding will enable staff members to upgrade information technology systems and more easily assist individuals and small businesses seeking to file their taxes. A report from the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Admin, however, indicated that the agency has not yet decided how the actions enabled by the funds will impact audit rates for middle-income taxpayers. Oh, I'm sure they actually have. I'm sure they have decided that. They just don't want to be public with that yet. The document noted the Inflation Reduction Act earmarked $45.6 billion, the majority of the new funds, towards enforcement activities that will empower agents to determine and collect taxes owed. Some $3.2 billion will be used to aid taxpayers with filing and account services, pre-filing assistance, and education, while $4.8 billion will be used for business systems and modernization that can be invested in customer service technology. The agency's budget for enforcement activity will therefore increase 69% over the next decade, while the budget for taxpayer services will increase 9%. The remainder of the new funding will be used to cover the cost of rent, facilities, and telecommunications. Yellen has previously vowed that the new resources will not be utilized to increase audit rates for American households earning less than $400,000 per year relative to historical levels. She failed to clarify that historical levels of enforcement were far higher as recently as 1 decade ago. Audit rates for Americans earning between $25,000 and $200,000, for instance, decreased 76% between 2010 and 2019, according to data from the Government Accountability Office. Yeah, it's what we call weasel words. They can come out and say, as compared to historical levels, and then jack up their rates, 76%, and still not be lying to your face. I'm probably going to get audited at some point, probably in the very near future, because I say mean and nasty things about the government. So that's where we are at with that. And of course, they're not going to tell you. Some more financial news from, this is from our friends over at NPR. Google is cutting 12,000 jobs, adding to a series of big tech layoffs in January. This is from Mary Yang. And even if you are laid off from Google, just remember, it's not your money, comrade, it's our money. So make sure you hit that donate button and let NPR know that you don't support capitalism, because it's not your money, it's our money. And you support the communism and progressivism that NPR stands for. NPR is never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. Google is the latest tech giant to announce massive layoffs. The company announced on Friday that it's slashing about 12,000 jobs. The company's already notified affected employees in the US. CEO Sundar Pichai. What is it the already conservative used to call him? Sunburn Poontang! Wrote in an email to all Google employees, layoffs will take longer in other countries due to local laws, Pichai said. The job cuts represent about 6% of Google's global workforce. It's not clear how many of those jobs are in the US. January has been a brutal month for big tech workers. Microsoft announced sweeping layoffs Thursday and is cutting 10,000 jobs, or about 5% of its workforce. Amazon and Salesforce announced layoffs earlier this month. The companies say they hired rapidly during the pandemic and now have to make serious cuts amid an uncertain economy. Over the past 2 years, we've seen periods of dramatic growth. To match and fuel that growth, we hired for a different economic reality than the one we're facing today, wrote Pichai in an email to staff posted online and in a regulatory filing. The layoffs also come as major tech companies like Google pivot to artificial intelligence, but expanding on early investments comes with tough choices, Pichai wrote. The job cuts will hit employees throughout the parent company, Alphabet, and across product areas, functions, levels, and regions, he said. So, you know those 3 words that are initialed LTC that we can't say on YouTube still, by the way? Yeah, I guess that wasn't really such a bold move for the future after all. Sorry. Alright. From CNBC, which is packed with advertisements. Here are the layoff severance packages Google, Microsoft, and Amazon and other tech giants have promised. Will they follow through with them? Time will tell. So, we'll skip the intro because we know what's happening with them. Here is Alphabet. Sunburn Poontang said Google would lay off 12,000 workers across product areas, functions, levels, and regions. Yes, we know. Laid off employees will also, let's see. Laid off U.S. employees will receive pay through the notification period and receive a 16-week base severance package, with an additional 2 weeks for every year of employment at Google, Poontang said in a memo to employees. Laid off employees will also have at least 16 weeks of share vesting accelerated and receive 6 months of healthcare coverage, he said. That's not actually a bad deal. I disagree with Sundar Pichai on almost everything, but that's not actually a bad deal. At least the healthcare part of it. Let's see. Microsoft. On Wednesday, Microsoft said it was laying off 10,000 employees as the software maker anticipated slower revenue growth for the upcoming year. The cuts will take place through the end of March, with a spokesperson telling CNBC that the sales and marketing teams would see deeper cuts than engineering. I don't know how you have a sales and marketing team for Microsoft when that is like the gold standard. If you build a PC at all, it's just assumed that you put Windows on it. CEO Satya Nadella said in an employee memo that some would learn this week if they were losing their jobs. Benefit-eligible U.S. employees are to receive severance, 6 months of health care, and stock vesting, and 60 days of notice, Nadella wrote. The Microsoft CEO has already alluded to potential cost-cutting efforts in an interview with CNBC TV 18. Amazon. Amazon's been going through rolling layoffs since last year, we know that. For retail employees in the U.S., Amazon's offering full pay and benefits over a 60-day period when Amazon will keep them on the payroll, but they won't be expected to keep working. After that period, Amazon will offer laid-off employees several weeks of severance depending on their length of time with the company, a separation payment, transitional health benefits, and job placement. That's, again, completely disagree with Amazon, but that's not bad either, especially with all the open jobs we have in this country, to help their new employees get another job right away. I'm not completely opposed to that. Amazon severance package appears similar for affected employees in other units. HR head Beth Galetti said the company will offer a separation payment health benefits as applicable by country and job placement. Salesforce. Let's see. A spokesperson told CNBC severance package for Salesforce would include 6 months of health care and a minimum 2 months of outplacement support. Those outside the U.S. will receive a similar level of support, Benioff wrote. The company anticipated taking $1 billion to $1.4 billion impairment related to severance payments and employee transition, among other things. And Meta, Zuckerberg. At the time, Zuckerberg promised every laid-off employee 16 weeks of severance plus 2 weeks for every year of service, as well as vesting of restricted share units and health insurance covered for a predetermined amount of time. But of course, they're saying that some of them are receiving substandard severance packages and only received 8 weeks of pay. And Twitter, I mean, we know the layoffs for Twitter already because those already happened long ago. So, if you are being laid off from one of the big tech companies, that's what you can expect. And I'm not going to lie, some of these are not bad deals. I mean, Amazon coming out and helping you go get a new job. That's good. That's a good thing. Well, let's see. let's talk about some good news. I got criticized earlier this week for focusing too much on bad news. Let's talk about some good news. A white pill for you. From CNN, who is still going to try to spin this as bad news, by the way. From CNN, anti-abortion activists attend the first March for Life with fresh resolve post-Roe. From Veronica Strakwalersi at CNN. Oh man, look at all those people. That's not a trick of the camera. That's a buttload of people. Haters will say it's photoshopped. Anti-abortion advocates from across the country gathered in D.C. on Friday for the annual March for Life, the first since the Supreme Court's conservative majority ended the federal constitutional right to an abortion that never actually existed. This year's march marks a turn in the fight against abortion rights, with opponents' primary goal of overturning Roe met and half of all states having banned or restricted wow, I can really talk today. Having banned or restricted access to abortion in most cases. But anti-abortion advocates contend that their work isn't finished, as they aim to advance legislation that restricts abortion at the state and federal levels, including setting a minimum federal standard on the procedure. The pro-life movement has just experienced a major victory in the fall of Roe v. Wade, but our work to build a culture of life is far from complete. Jeannie Mancini, the head of March for Life's Education and Defense Fund, told CNN by email before the march, the theme of which was Next Steps, Marching Forward into a Post-Roe America. Mancini said the march represented a time to reflect upon the Dobbs decision as a critical milestone, a reference to the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization case that led to Roe's reversal, as well a time to look forward to the next steps. We're not done. Attendees at Friday's rally, who spoke with CNN, expressed excitement but noted that more work needed to be done to stop abortions, to help mothers, and change the culture around the issue. What we're here to say is we're not done. We have more progress that needs to be made on this issue, said William Herb, 24, Catholic schoolteacher from New York. There's still a fight that we need to continue with. That's something that we still need to persuade large portions of America that it's not something that's acceptable. This isn't something that's okay, he said. Justin Rhino and Hallie Gift, 18-year-olds who were among the students from Liberty University leading off the march, told CNN it was necessary as Christians to make their voices heard. There are still states that legalize abortion. This is only the first part. Overturning Roe wasn't the last victory, Rhino said. So yes, we can celebrate that Roe was overturned, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done before we can celebrate. Attendees traveled from all over the U.S. for the march, like Jewel Salvard, a first-time rally-goer from California who is representing the Colorado-based organization Save the Storks, which partners with pregnancy centers. I'm so elated, I'm on the edge of tears because, sometimes you feel like you're fighting this fight alone, Savard said. Friday's rally began at noon and featured speakers including Republican House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, former NFL coach Tony Dungy, will be talking about that later on, and Mississippi AG Lynn Fitch, who won the case that resulted in the overturning of Roe. Scalise with Republican reps Jim Banks of Indiana, Brad Wenstrup of Ohio, Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania, Andy Harris of Maryland, Michelle Fischbach of Minnesota, Mary Miller of Illinois, and Chris Smith of New Jersey, standing behind him, called the Supreme Court's decision overturning Roe a huge victory. That's only the end of the first phase of the battle. The next step is now begins, and that's what this year's march is all about. The next steps in a post-Roe era, the Louisiana Republicans said, telling rally-goers to urge their senators to support legislation known as the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Ahead of Friday's march, the National Right to Life Committee, President Carol Tobias, said that while she anticipated a celebration among these gathered, activists were realistic. We will protect unborn children and their moms through the law. Where we can and where we can't, we will work through educational efforts and resources to make abortion unthinkable, she said. And that's the thing to do. Now, again, I don't necessarily agree with outlawing abortion at a government level. The important part of this is to change the culture. not to go back out and have the government force people into morality. Forced morality never works. We can teach them, we can hold their hands, but we can also bring this down to a more local level. And once again, my big thing with Roe, it wasn't always the fact that it was there and that I'm totally an anti-abortion advocate. I am, but I'm also an anti-government advocate. So do keep that in mind when I talk about outlawing the practice altogether. But I've always marked this as a victory for Roe, that when it got overturned, we came to a position wherein the federal government overreach from unelected officials came to an end. Well, at least in the one case. But it also opened the door to end other things that aren't done by legislation. Laws that aren't done by legislation need to end in this country. And the overturn of Roe was one of the first steps towards that, so I'm very happy for that. And yes, I am also very happy that some more little babies get to stay alive, and honestly, some more people think about it before they stick that there. From Fox News, Tony Dungy, as promised. Tony Dungy to attend March for Life, dubbed right-wing extremist. From Ryan Morick. Hall of Fame football coach Tony Dungy announced Wednesday on Twitter that he will be attending the March for Life on Friday. The two-time Super Bowl champion, one as player, one as coach, said he will attend to support those unborn babies who don't have a voice. It will be his first time at a rally, and it sparked criticism in the media because, of course, it did. Dave Zirin, sports editor for The Nation, said he is done with Tony Dungy and the way the NFL and NBC coddle his right-wing extremism. Zirin says Dungy is someone venerated throughout the NFL world as a man of character, but has spent years as an anti-gay bigot. Zirin wrote he said publicly and proudly that he would not want gay football player Michael Sam on his team. He said over a decade ago he disagreed with the lifestyle of Jason Collins and first came the first out active male gay player in the main for North American sports. This is the Dungy staple, calling being LGBTQIRABIXTOUMINGTOLI, sometimes Y, a lifestyle even after people have said to him repeatedly how hurtful and outdated such a description is. He simply doesn't care. Well, it's probably good because I don't really care either. He also ripped the NFL and NBC, where Dungy hosts Football Night in America, for celebrating him and his politics. This is a staggering indictment of his politics, the NFL, and the network's partners allow, and the kind that they condemn when someone like, Colin Kaepernick steps up and kneels down to end police violence and racial inequality, which is not why he kneeled down, of course. He becomes a pariah. Meanwhile, Dungy is held up as deeply religious man and nearly a patron saint for the league. Dungy has used his devoutness as a cover for his anti-gay rhetoric and sharing platforms with unapologetic bigots. If Dungy wants a show on the Daily Wire, more power to him, Zirin wrote, but his being center stage on the most watched program in the country makes NBC and the NFL complicit in his disinformation and political posturing. Okay, I have not watched Football Night in America for a very long time. But what I can tell you about Football Night in America, or watching Dungy comment on NBC games, like Monday Night Football, or Sunday Night Football rather, is that I've never heard him make a political statement. He always talks about the game and the league. He never uses NBC as his platform. Meanwhile, Kaepernick is held up like the patron saint. Not because he actually wanted to end police violence, he did it. He found something to do to make himself relevant and almost make himself untouchable and unfireable, or so he thought. If he was a political activist and he gets fired, now he looks like he's being oppressed. And a lot of people went down that road when he did get his ass canned but also for somebody who had a negative quarterback rating in his last year in the NFL. But that's where they're at. We've got an op-ed from Stephen Collinson over at CNN. Trump struggles with the new politics of abortion as a triumphant March for Life arrives in Washington. The anti-abortion March for Life for decades demonstrated to Republicans that they could not reach the Oval Office without the support of the anti-abortion movement. On Friday, marchers will gather in Washington with decades-long mission accomplished after the Supreme Court's removal of a constitutional right to abortion by overturning Roe last year, even though it was never a right. That means that this year's march will be a time for celebration, but also of debate about where the movement goes next, with some campaigners seeking to restrict the procedure everywhere. But such a refocused goal carries big risks. Democrats, after all, belatedly leveraged their own energy over abortion in the midterm elections in a backlash against the right-wing Supreme Court majority that helped stave off a big Republican midterm election wave. The March for Life also comes at an extraordinary moment when Trump, the president who did more than any other to end Roe after a pact with social conservative voters that helped him win him the 2016 nomination, has launched an extraordinary attack on the evangelical leaders he sees as insufficiently loyal, as CNN's Gabby Orr, Kristen Holmes, and Caitlin Collins reported this week. Nobody's done more for right for life than Donald Trump. I put 3 Supreme Court justices who all voted, and they got something that they've been fighting for 64 years. For many, many years, Trump said in an interview on Real America's Voice Monday, referring to the overturning of federal abortion rights privileges. There's a great disloyalty in the world of politics. That's a sign of disloyalty, Trump told conservative journalist David Brody. The comment was a window into Trump's psychology, revealing his transactional understanding of politics and his highly developed sense of fealty he sees owed to him. Do you actually believe this crap? Now, as far as we go with this, some things to look for with this is, yes, Donald Trump is an egotist. And yes, there are people out there that look at him because the mainstream media is telling them that he is evil, must be stopped, and he will destroy the Republican and install a dictatorship. There are people that want to be distanced from him. But who else is there? And of course, CNN and Stephen Collinson want to see a major civil war in the Republican Party because they know that there's going to be one in the Democrat Party, especially with the fact that they've pretty much just thrown Joe Biden under the bus. This article is a nothing burger. But on the abortion front as well, some good news coming from the Associated Press of all places. FBI offers reward in vandalism at Tennessee pregnancy clinic. No author given. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $25,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of those responsible for vandalism at a women's health clinic in Nashville. The fire occurred at Hope Clinic for Women on June 30th. An incendiary device was thrown through the clinic's front window, and the building's exterior was spray painted, the FBI's Memphis field office said in a statement. The device did not ignite, thank God, but the FBI has labeled it as an arson investigation. Bill Lee called the incident an act of terrorism. The clinic offers pregnancy tests, ultrasounds, and counseling. In a rare move of actually trying to do their jobs from the FBI. Should we actually congratulate them over this? Because you know they're going to screw up again. Let's talk about DocumentGate. I got video over here from Beck's website. CBS News, Biden says he has no regrets on handling of classified documents since discovery. From Catherine Watson. President Brandon told reporters in California Thursday that he has no regrets on the handling of documents marked classified that were discovered in a former office at his Wilmington home, including the admin's decision not to confirm or disclose the existence of the documents until they were reported 2 months later. Mr. Biden, asked why the White House didn't disclose the existence of the documents in November before the midterms, told reporters he thinks they're going to find out there's no there there. There were 4 words in that sentence, and 3 of them were there. Technically 5, because one's a contraction. There are 5 words in that sentence, and 3 of them are there. Wait, no, we got video.
We owe more than I could take time to talk about today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, I will answer the question, but here's the deal. You know, what quite frankly bugs me.
Biden, by the way, and if we remember back from the movie Maverick, not the TV show from the 60s, the comedy movie that starred Mel Gibson in the 90s. If we remember back from the movie Maverick, everybody's got to tell when they're about to bluff or lie about what they have in their hands. Biden's tell when he's about to lie is that his lips are moving, but in full seriousness, Biden, I've noticed listening to him for the last 3 years now, Biden's tell when he's about to come back out and lie is always, here's the deal. Have you ever noticed that? Right before he tells the big whopper, it's always, here's the deal, man.
Question, but here's the deal. You know, what quite frankly bugs me is that we have a serious problem here we're talking about what's going on, and the American people don't quite understand why you don't ask me questions about that. But having said that, what's your question? Just hang on, okay? Look, as we found a handful of documents were filed in the wrong place. We immediately turned them over to the archives of the Justice Department. We're fully cooperating, looking forward to getting this resolved quickly. I think you're going to find there's nothing there. I have no regrets. I'm following what the lawyers have told me they want me to do. It's exactly what we're doing. There's no there. Thank you.
Dude, homeboy has no idea what's going on in these documents. And honestly, I could see the position of the moron left-wingers out there who say that things can be planted off of this, because I do think that there is an attempt to throw him under the bus and get somebody else in there. He defeated the evil orange man, but I don't think that he's got it in him to do it again. And I think a lot of people, even people who are his most ardent supporters, believe the same thing. From Fox, could the Biden documents probe affect his potential re-election bid? America weighs in. I'm going to stop you right there. Yes. Which is the reason it's coming to light right now. From John Michael Roche and Ramiro Vargas. Americans are split on whether the investigation into President Biden's handling of classified materials could affect his re-election chances. I would vote for him every time, Artis, a D.C. resident, told Fox News, but another man in D.C., Chris, said it should hurt his re-election. Biden's personal attorneys discovered classified records improperly stored at the president's old office in D.C. in November, but the public wasn't made aware until January, days after the document discoveries were made public. Additional classified materials were found at Biden's personal home in Wilmington. A.G. Garland said last week, appointed a special counsel to investigate the matter. Depending on what they find, it may hurt the election, Kanesha told Fox News. But Emily said, it will not affect my vote. A Quinnipiac University poll released Wednesday found that 60% of Americans believe Biden handled classified materials inappropriately, while only 22% said it was above board. Just over a third said he should face criminal charges. He should, but he won't. If that's the standard that you set with the Mar-a-Lago raid, then he should, but he won't. I hope it hurts his re-election because, as I said, I don't think he's a suitable candidate. Sue, who didn't vote for Biden in 2020, said, so a little bit of a mixed bag there. The thing with this, and by the way, this goes back to the Trump handling of classified documents, is one of the reasons that this is such a big deal in both cases, and I do think that, again, in both cases, this was put up, designed, and presented to the American people to make it impossible for both men to get elected again in 2024. But it's an easy thing to come out and say because there never has to be a presentation of evidence to anybody. I know a lot of people will come out here and say that there's precedent out there and there's ways that you can trial and convict people for classified documents, but it's people who have revealed the classified documents. Reality winner. Chelsea Manning, Edward Snowden, even though he never got convicted and he went into exile. But the reality is that because they are top secret, highly classified documents, there is no responsibility and no onus anywhere for anybody in the world to ever see what's in the documents. So they can come out and concoct whatever wild stories about what's in there, or whatever tame story for that matter, depending on what the letter after the politician's name is, about what's in the documents, and nobody will ever see them. Ever. You have no proof. There's no proof to bring to the American people. So if it is a ploy by the deep state or higher powers or etc. to keep both men from running, it's the perfect crime because you'll never be able to present those documents to the people. From The Blaze. CNN airs damning report that Biden did interact with Hunter's business associates despite his denials. So we'll do a little bit of lead up to this, but the majority of this segment is we are going to watch a portion of the report. CNN aired on Wednesday a report devastating President Biden's claims that he never engaged in the business dealings of his son Hunter. Biden has repeatedly denied any involvement in Hunter's overseas business deals. The CNN segment began with Biden's own words. I've never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period. Then Pam Brown, chief investigative correspondent at CNN, dove into devastating detail demonstrating how that is allegedly not true. So let's listen to some of this here. And by the way, as I mentioned at the top of the show, this tipped off and enraged the page shills over on Twitter, and of course the people that follow them for the purposes of rage. So we're going to listen to some of this here. We're not going to go through the whole 6 minutes. We'll do 2, maybe 3, and listen to what it is that they have to say.
He has built his political career on promises of honesty, hard work, and a pledge that a family name means something.
I give you my word as a Biden. I give you my word as a Biden.
But while Joe Biden swears by his name in politics, his son and 2 brothers spent years trying to benefit from the Biden name. It's all now the focus of a Republican-led congressional investigation.
We want to know what the Biden administration is trying to hide from the American people and why they are not being transparent.
Republican Congressman James Comer now chairs the House Oversight Committee and has set his sights on Joe Biden's son, Hunter, a mysterious laptop now in the hands of the FBI, and long-held conspiracy theories about President Joe Biden and what he does or doesn't know.
I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
Despite his denials, a CNN review of the laptop data, as well as other public material, shows that Joe Biden did interact with some of his son's associates while serving as vice president, though it's unclear exactly what was discussed. One example, the Republican cite Miguel Alemán Magnani, a Mexican businessman and son of the former president who Hunter was trying to woo. In 2014, Alemán Magnani and his dad were photographed at the White House with then Vice President Biden. In a later email, Hunter Biden reminds Alemán Magnani of the favors he's done for him. We have been talking about business deals and partnerships for 7 years. I have brought every single person you have ever asked me to bring to the effing White House and the Vice President's house and the inauguration. Hunter Biden bluntly acknowledged the power of the Biden name in a memoir, writing that the Ukrainian energy company Burisma, which put him on its board, considered my last name gold.
I don't think that there's a lot of things that would have happened in my life that if my last name wasn't Biden.
Joe Biden's brothers have repeatedly referenced him in their private dealings. Frank Biden, a developer of for-profit charter schools, has invoked his brother in trying to convince local officials to approve his projects, like in Sunrise, Florida, where he told the city in 2015 to trust his venture.
Not because of Frank, but because of the honor of being the brother of a guy I think we all know and love.
In 2021, at a gathering of medical professionals, he made this pledge.
The bully pulpit that I have as a result of the privilege of being associated with my brother Joey. And I'll do everything in my power to support you to get the job done, to get federal dollars to your research.
Frank Biden told CNN there has been zero interaction between his brother's public office and his private business, adding, "Do I engage in any way in quid pro quo on any level? Absolutely not."
The last name gave credibility, initially.
Healthcare entrepreneur Michael Frey told CNN.
So that's what they're going with off of this. And I mean, CNN actually coming out and being denigrating to Biden, that's something a lot of us aren't used to at this point, because it is showing some of the business dealings. And with the documents, the stage is set for Biden to be left behind with tire marks on him as they boot him out and they go find the next person. And of course, as I mentioned, our Dash Dabrowskis and our Jersey My Wife's Son Reliance and our people like that are going to feign outrage over this until, mysteriously, a new hero Democrat's going to come and step up, and then they're going to be all in on that new hero Democrat as well. All right, what else do we have? From ABC 7, talking about the Supreme Court leak. Justices weren't required to sign sworn affidavits in leak investigation. From Scripps News. The Marshal of the Supreme Court revealed on Friday justices were not required to sign sworn affidavits during the investigation into the leak of the Supreme Court's draft opinion in the abortion case. In a statement, Gail Curley said she spoke with the justices on several occasions. She added that they cooperated with the investigations, answering her questions and asking their own questions. I followed up with all credible leads, none of which were implicated the justices or their spouses, she said, for those reasons. Curley said she did not require the justices to sign sworn affidavits, despite others being required to do so. The Supreme Court issued a statement Thursday that said the Marshal of the Court could not determine who leaked the document to Politico. Investigators conducted over 100 interviews with 97 employees, all of whom denied disclosing the draft opinion. No one confessed to publicly disclosing the document, and none of the available forensic and other evidence provided a basis for identifying any individual as the source of the document. The report says it doesn't appear the court systems were hacked to obtain the document. However, investigators couldn't rule out the possibility with 100% certainty. They also said they couldn't rule out that the draft opinion was inadvertently left in public. Interesting that there were people among the rest that didn't have to come out and say, "Oh yes, no, we didn't do it, and we're going to sign a document that says we can go to jail if we tell you a lie." But oops, we have no idea who did it. We might never know. I sang the praises of Donald Trump earlier, that he had it right on Medicare, and as I promised, he did have it very, very wrong on another story later on. Arrest the reporters, publisher, editor. Trump calls for jailing journalists if they won't identify the Supreme Court draft opinion leaker. That is an election loser right there. From Alex Nitzberg. No. 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 Bad. 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 Former President Trump is calling for the journalists who were involved in publishing a leaked Supreme Court draft opinion last year to be jailed if they decline to divulge the identity of their source. The Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization draft opinion, published by Politico in May 2022, revealed that the High Court appeared poised to overturn Roe v. Wade. The court did just that with its official opinion on June 2022. The Supreme Court Marshal's report about the investigation into the leak noted that the probe had failed to uncover the culprit. Trump, who announced last year he was running for president, said the reporter who broke the news about the leaked draft opinion should be thrown in jail if they refuse to disclose their identity of the leaker. No, you don't do that. You don't throw your source under the bus. You got the information, you have the freedom of the press, you put it out. I am 100% against the leaking of this, while still knowing full well that this is tin porn, tin pot dictator crap. Politico's Josh Gerstein and Alex Ward authored the piece last year about the leaked draft opinion. Trump also suggested imprisoning the editor and publisher as well if they do not identify the source. No. No. Is there a newspaper around here? Spray bottle? No. That's bad. They'll never find out, and it's important that they do. So, go to the reporter and ask him or her who it was. If not given the answer, put whoever in jail until the answer is given. You might add the publisher and editor to the list. Stop playing games. This leaking cannot be allowed to happen. It won't take long before the name of this slime is revealed. Trump wrote in a Truth Social post. Arrest the reporter, publisher, editor. You'll get your answer fast. Stop playing games and wasting time, he wrote in another post. And you just know that whoever the Democrat candidate winds up being, and I don't know who it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be Joe, is going to take this. They're going to... The people who are behind the candidate are going to go back and they're going to... they probably already got the screenshot of this Truth Social post. And they're going to go back and they're going to post that everywhere. And he got another one coming off of here, complete with the Associated Press editorialism. Judge finds Trump and lawyer for frivolous Clinton lawsuit. From Jill Colvin. A Florida judge sanctioned former President Trump and one of his attorneys, ordering them to pay nearly $1 million for filing what he said was a bogus lawsuit against Trump's 2016 rival Hillary Clinton and others. In a blistering filing on Thursday, District Judge Donald M. Middlebrooks accused Trump of a pattern of abuse of the courts for filing frivolous lawsuits for political purposes, which he said undermines the rule of law and amounts to obstruction of justice. Do you fine $1 million to everybody who files a frivolous lawsuit? Because your county must be very, very rich at that point. You might not even have to do taxation. But somehow I doubt that you actually do that. Here we're confronted with a lawsuit that should never have been filed, which was completely frivolous. You know, like the McDonald's hot coffee lawsuit, both factually and legally, and which was brought in bad faith for an improper purpose, he wrote. Citing Trump's recent legal action against the Pulitzer Prize Board, New York's Attorney General, big tech companies, and CNN, he described Trump as a prolific and sophisticated litigant who uses the courts to seek revenge on political adversaries. He's the mastermind of strategic abuse and of the judicial process, he wrote. The ruling required Trump and his attorney, Alina Habba, to pay nearly $938,000 to the defendants in the case. A spokesman for Trump and Habba did not immediately respond to requests for comment on late Thursday. That is much, much, much higher than legal fees. And that's not a countersuit either. This, by the way, is a decision that needs to be appealed post-haste. This is a punitive action against what's probably a political enemy. Middlebrooks, in a September, dismissed the suit Trump had filed against Clinton, a former top FBI official, and the Democratic Party, rejecting the former president's claims that they and others conspired to sink his winning presidential campaign by alleging ties to Russia. Yeah. Who would judge and rule against Hillary Clinton? Seriously. That's a good way to get a severe bout of depression, so bad that you have to reach behind your head with a pistol and shoot yourself twice. From the Daily Wire, we got just a couple more left, and we will do a live chat after this. So if you are, by the way, just lurking right now and you want to get those last minute messages in to get read on the air, we're going to finish up these 5 articles and head out of here for the day. Lauren Boebert tells Dana Lash what she said to Marjorie Taylor Greene in the Congressional Ladies' Room. From Virginia Kruta. And we've got video of this one. Lauren Boebert told radio host Dana Lash what was said behind closed doors when she and Marjorie Taylor Greene had a run-in while in the Congressional Ladies' Room. Boebert spoke to Lash on her radio show this week, and she detailed the conversation which took place during the fight over whether or not Kevin McCarthy would become the Speaker of the House. Let's listen.
What the hell goes on in the ladies' bathroom?
Okay, so I actually kind of love that story came out because of how I was quoted. So yeah, I mean, we're talking in the Congressional Ladies' Bathroom. I'm there with Anna Paulina Luna, and, you know, people are upset about what's going on in the Speaker's race. It had been a couple of days. We were not electing Kevin McCarthy. We hadn't received the concessions that we wanted. And my colleague from Georgia, the gentlewoman from Georgia, came up and started, being kind of nasty about it. And no one else had been nasty about it. Everyone had been very professional. I have seen, it was the most organized I have seen Congress since I've been there in 2 years. We had debate on the House floor, 434 members of Congress present. We were engaging in conversations. Relationships were being built and strengthened on both sides of the aisle. It was incredible. And so when she started going after me, I looked at her and said, "Don't be ugly."
Because you guys were kind of like BFFs there for a while, weren't you? Or no? Is that just because, the media was like, look, 2 women in Congress at the same time?
I think the media saw 2 women in Congress. There was nothing against her. We travel in the same circles, right. Have the same policy views on a lot of things, not everything, but on many things.
Right.
And but yeah, I looked at her, said, "I don't have time for this." I said, "Don't be ugly." And that's something that my granny used to say to me when I was being a brat.
It's like the most inoffensive thing you could say,
she'd
say,
say, "Don't be ugly." And
probably
so
how I would have responded.
Yeah, Granny told me that a lot, though.
Yeah. It's like, sounds like a Coloradan version of Bless Your Heart.
Right, yes.
Right? It's what it sounds like.
Lauren, you're being ugly. Okay. So I left and went back to work. But gosh, what an amazing first week.
I sure do like Lauren Boebert most of the time. She does some things that I think are tremendously stupid. But a lot of the time I do enjoy what it is she has to say and, actually see some of the conflict off this. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I still think that Marjorie is a plant. Especially when she went all in on Kevin McCarthy the way that she did. So, that's where we are at with that. From the Daily Mail. Hate in their heart. Outrage as Republican Congressman Byron Donald's office has sent a copy of, you guessed it, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Why? Because, well, we all know who really has the hate in their hearts. From Morgan Phillips, U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. Florida GOP Rep Byron Donalds revealed that he was mailed a copy of Uncle Tom's Cabin to insinuate a racial slur against him. Today, my DC office received a copy of the world-renowned book Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Whoever sent this book did so with hate in their heart and a desire to depict me as a sellout, Donalds wrote on Twitter. Concentrations and mental toughness are the margins of victory, he said, quoting NBA player Bill Russell. Uncle Tom is an insult based on the novel to call a black person who's overly deferential to white people. During the House Speaker's election, Cori Bush made similar insinuation, calling Donalds a prop. Yeah, we read all of that. During the Speaker's debacle, Republicans noted it would be the first time two black men, Donalds and Hakeem Jeffries, had been on the ballot. There's the tweet. Today, my DC office received a copy. Oh, we read the tweet already. Donalds shot back. Nobody asked Cori Bush her opinion on the matter. Before you judge my agenda, let's have a debate over the policies and outcomes. Until then, don't be a crab in a barrel. Donalds is one of 4 black Republicans in the House, up from 2 in the last Congress. Last term, Donalds revealed he had been shut out from Congressional Black Caucus, an influential and official nonpartisan group that is actually highly partisan, on Capitol Hill that's comprised entirely of Democrats. An official nonpartisan group that's entirely comprised of black men or black people from one side of the aisle. From NBC, Nikki Haley teases a 2024 presidential run. We need to go in a new direction. Please, God, no. No, 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 no. You can't do this to me, Nikki. No, 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 no. Not right now. No, 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 not ever. No, thank you. No. From Rebecca Shabbat. And before we get out of the headline, we need to go in a new direction. And by new direction, she means going back into the exact same direction that we went in before, where neoconservative war pigs, like Nikki Haley, are running the Republican Party. Yes, that is that totally new direction. That's a completely new direction, right? Republican Nikki Haley strongly hinted in an interview that aired Thursday that she might run for president, though stopped short of declaring a bid. Speaking with Bret Baier, the former South Carolina governor said that while she wasn't going to announce her plans during the interview, she signaled that it could be coming soon. When you're looking at a run for president, you look at 2 things. You first look at, does the current situation push for new leadership? The second question is, am I that person that could be that new leader, she said. Yes, we need to go in a new direction, Haley said, and I can be that leader. Yes, I think I can be that leader. Haley, 51, then listed her accomplishments in her career, saying that as a governor, she took on a state that was hurting and made it the best of the Southeast. Then she said, as ambassador to the UN, she took the world when they tried to disrespect us. Haley said she's still working through things and will figure this out. Please, God, no. Please, I beg you. There are a few things that I ask for from the Almighty himself. Because in a stark contrast from what I went through in my 20s, the Lord in the last 7 years has really given with both hands. Let's say 5 years. In the last 5 years, the Lord has given with both hands. So I don't ask for a lot. But please, 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 anybody but Haley. Anybody but Haley, please. From Politico, Nikki Haley dismisses Pompeo's VP claims as lies and gossip. From Olivia Olander, former Governor Nikki Haley of South Carolina on Thursday dismissed a story from former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo about her ambitions as lies and gossip to sell the book. Pompeo had suggested in his forthcoming book that Haley worked with Kushner and Ivanka to become former President Trump's vice president, according to an excerpt published in part in The Guardian. I don't know why he said it, but that's exactly why I stayed out of D.C. as much as possible, to get away from the drama, Haley, who served as U.S. ambassador to the UN in the Trump admin, told Fox host Brett Baer. Haley also pointed out that Pompeo himself said in the excerpt that he couldn't confirm whether the story was true. Trump's vice president, Mike Pence, is a friend, she said, adding that she never discussed the vice presidency with anyone in the admin. Haley also teased a presidential run in the interview. Do us all a favor, Donald. If you do manage to pull this off again, saying stupid crap, like you said in the Blaze, and the Blaze article rather, if you do still manage to pull this off and pull this together and ascend to the White House one more time, don't take Nikki Haley. Rand Paul, that's who you should be taking. Massey, that would be a good one. Somebody, anybody but Nikki Haley. Alright, and the last one we have here comes again from our friends over at NPR. A little bit of an explanation over what happened with the FAA grounding a couple weeks ago. FAA contractors deleted files and inadvertently grounded thousands of flights. Sounds like they're going to try to spin this off as an accident. I do still have questions about this one, but we have to hear from NPR to tell us why the capitalism of the FAA is bad. So hit that donate button, because NPR needs to be able to tell you why it is that all capitalism is evil. That's right. So hit that button. NPR is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. By the way, as we go into this, this is the official channel off of this. And I'm going to say right off the bat that I probably am not going to believe a word of it. Contractors unintentionally grounded thousands of flights last week when they deleted files while working on the Notice-to-Air mission system, the Federal Aviation Administration says. The agency said in a statement Thursday that a preliminary review found the shutdown happened as the contractors worked to correct synchronization between the live primary database and a backup database. Investigators so far found no evidence of malicious intent or cyber attack. I'll hold my opinion to the end. NOTAM is used by the FAA to notify pilots and airports of any potential flight hazards. The FAA says it's taken steps to make the system more resilient, though the statement did not specify those measures. NOTAM went dark late on Tuesday, sparking safety concerns by the time morning began on the East Coast, and the FAA ordered a nationwide pause on domestic flight departures. By 0900, the system had been fully restored and the flights began to resume. But the system failure caused airlines to cancel more than 1,300 flights and delay nearly 10,000 more. Ted Cruz, on January 11th, attacked the nationwide disruption as completely unacceptable and the latest example of dysfunction within the Department of Transportation. Transport Secretary Pete Buttigieg defended the shutdown after services were restored on Wednesday. Well, when there's a problem with the government system, we're going to own it. We're going to find it, we're going to fix it, Buttigieg said. In this case, we had to make sure there was complete confidence about safety and flight operations, which is why there was the conservative but important step to have that pause and make sure everything was back up and running. Well, here's the thing. As far as this goes, the official story is that it was an accident, that contractors who were putting this all together just hit the accidental button and shut down an entire nation and lost the industry Probably $1 billion, by the way. I want to put the odds of that actually happening at 50-50. But the reality is that the Department of Transportation, the FAA, are going to work together to, if this isn't the real story, which I'm not going to say if it is or isn't right now, I don't have enough evidence to say that the other way. But what I will say of this is, if it did go the other way, if it was sabotage, and if it was malicious, we'll never know. The reason we'll never know is because, in order for us to know, it would put so much panic into the FAA and the airline system. Oh, hey, I could be up on a flight somewhere and somebody else could hack into the NOTAM and I might not make it to the ground. I might die, or my flight might get delayed. I might just drive instead. And that's something that you do have to think about when we go with something like this. Again, I'm not going to say that this was malice. I'm saying that the possibility exists. And there is a very, very good reason for, if there was malice, to not let it get out to the public. But again, I also know that there are situations out there where you could hit a wrong. The only thing that bothers me about this is, okay, they're setting up the mainframe to a backup. I would feel like, especially for something like the NOTAM, that there would have been a built-in redundancy or backup within the system to make sure that the backup didn't go bad. Like on other parts of the government software, okay, yeah, if something does go black and go dark like that, we can recover in probably a very short amount of time. But with the FAA and the fact that this affected so many private industry sides of things that are authorized and governed by the federal government, by the executive branch of the federal government, I feel like there would have been another redundancy to prevent something like this from happening. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me thinking how overly cautious I would be if I was in charge of something like this. I don't know. But with that, we are out of news right now. So we are going to go check in with a live chat, which Mr. Scott has been quite busy here tonight, which is good. I mean, the more, especially with the Twitch side, the more chat that comes in here, the more Twitch will advertise us, especially. DLive, not so much. YouTube, definitely not so much, because I do news. So they have to be there for the big boys. But for Twitch, yes, the more chat goes through there, the more they promote us out to the front screen. So we do have that as well. And I'm going to read just a little bit of what we have going on here to start, but we also have the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat to talk about as well. And these guys will all get a special thank you as well. But where we're at on this, I'll go down to, I think, the second Nightbot message, and then we will check on. And if we do have to interrupt and go back and read more because it's flying by too fast, we will do so. Grant says, I don't think that they did a real investigation for the Supreme Court leak. That's my belief on the matter. I'm kind of with you on that one, Grant. I think that you're correct. Mr. Scott is here. Beam me up, Mr. Scott. Says ahoy. Woohoo, positive news. Yep. The March for Life is very positive to me. Grant says there's a lot of things they claim to investigate but don't. Attacks on anti-abortion groups, election issues, pedo adoption rings, etc. Although we did find out about the $25,000 fine for the Tennessee anti-abortion clinic. Luke Wee says, yeah, Friday. Welcome, Luke Wee. Greetings, Luke. Howdy, Scott. And we'll park this up here just so we can see where it moves and see who chatted throughout the week. On Monday, our top chatters were Arvold, KTZed, Luke Wee, Ron Helton, and Randy Crush Saga. On Tuesday, our top chatters were Grant, Ron Helton, Luke Wee, Tattoo Lover, who is Kingdom Hearts in the Discord. Go say hi. Maybe Kingdom Hearts will come in here and hang out with us some more if somebody goes and says hi. I've not been able to be in the Discord as much as I used to be able to before I moved, because I actually have to do my job now. God forbid. I didn't have to do that at my last job because I had things running smoothly enough where I didn't. On Wednesday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, Blind Fear, Beam Me Up Mr. Scott, R. Volt, and yesterday, our top chatters were Ron Helton, Grant, Luke B., R. Volt, and Quest Fanning joining us late in the show. Alright, let's see what else you guys had to say today. Beam Me Up Mr. Scott says I was going back and forth with Osiris from Middle Mega earlier about the Crowder thing. I've not heard of Middle Mega. I might have to look into that. Grant says, I don't know why you thought that. Daily Wire grew fast because they had outside investors. This was not hidden. Mr. Scott says, initially I was like, I don't care about some multimillionaire's contract disputes. Yeah, I think that story has come and gone at this point. Grant says, I still don't care. I'm tired of hearing about it. Because I don't think we can do any more with it. Even if something else pops up, I mean, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. A highly successful YouTube star got an offer from a highly successful and probably bought and paid for media group. And nobody's going to agree on it. In fact, both fandoms are going to fight about it until the end of time. Mr. Scott says, I think it was a productive conversation. He agreed that by that stance, he doesn't care either. Luke Wee should buy some coin. That's not official financial advice. Mr. Scott says, points out very effectively, it's an interesting canary in the coal mine. Yes, and that's what I've said like right from the beginning, since Spartan started urging me to talk about Bitcoin at the top of the show, is that while it does have outside influence. It definitely does. Bitcoin does. But it really shows a short-term indication on where the economy is going to be going on a short-term basis. Because with Coinbase, or sites like Coinbase, and sites like Coinbase and the effectivity of PayPal, like you can cash out Bitcoin and have money in your account in like 10 minutes. If you need to, if you're running low on food, if you've got a bill that needs to be paid like right now, or you're going to lose your truck or something. You know, with stocks, you can only trade them within certain hours of the day, and it usually takes a couple days for the transaction to go through. With silver, you have to find a buyer, and you usually will get run into the ground by the stockbroker, or by the pawnbroker rather, who will take your gold or silver. Because I've got to make money too. But with Bitcoin, it's just right there, and the computer redundancy is there. And I mean, not everybody trades on Coinbase, but the vast majority of people who hold Bitcoin do, or another site like it. The dark web, the hackers, are the people who really get into Bitcoin, who trade it on exchanges and USB drives and etc. Those are fewer and farther between than the vast majority of people who hold crypto, I hate to say. And I'm in the former group too, by the way. Any crypto that I have right now came from Coinbase. I'd like to sit down and learn how to do it outside of Coinbase, but I don't know how to do that yet. Beam Me Up Mr. Scott says, I'd split the money you want to invest in Bitcoin into 3 uses. A third to buy Bitcoin, a third to silver, and a third to gold. You probably won't lose money on gold or silver, but you might make a bunch in crypto or lose it all. Yeah, and that's what I've said too with crypto. I'm like, don't bet your mortgage on crypto. Because in the end, like Ron Helton tells us, there's like nothing physical there. There's nothing. And there are a lot of ways out there that could just entirely wipe out your entire fortune, and a few people walking away carrying the bag in cash, the cash that you used to buy it. But for me, it's fun every once in a while to throw a $20 bill at some crap coin. I have Shiba. I lost all my Shiba. But it was fun to throw 20 bucks in it, and I made out like a bandit on Doge. And I'm gonna sit on that forever. Let's see. Grant says, don't some prominent Democrats sit on the board of Netflix? Which would you rather have to watch, Velma or Santa Incorporated? I guess I don't know what Santa Incorporated is. I know that the Velma thing is hot garbage, but I'd have to research Santa Incorporated to know what's going on there. Luke Wee says, I have the 2/3 covered with precious metals. I'm thinking about getting into Bitcoin, though. Mr. Scott says, the thing about Crowder and his we take 25% of the contract if you get banned is really bad, especially since the Twitter leak revelations of government entities being routinely involved with bans. That's all well and good, too. Luke Wee says, I need more gold, though. Yeah, Mr. Scott says, make your own wallet for sure. I need to know how to do that, too. Grant asks who David Crosby is. The least known member of Crosby, Stills, and Nash, even though he was the first one on the ticket. What would I know him for? Have you heard of the Wayback Machine? Oh, yeah, that's what we're saying. If you type how to make a Bitcoin wallet into Google, you get 60 pages of ads. That's correct. Yeah, that's almost something that you do need to work with somebody who's done it before. Because I don't know how to do it either. And yeah, I probably can't go and Google it either. Oh, he was in the band with Neil Young and the other guy I hadn't heard of that threatened to pull his music from Spotify because he didn't like Rogan. They actually did pull their music from Spotify. Steven Stills, by the way, is the other one that you're thinking of. And then Graham Nash actually got in on that too, but there are even fewer people who know who Graham Nash is than David Crosby. Yeah, 81 is a good run for a rock star. I'd be happy to make it to 81. I would be happy to make it to 81 myself. Luke Wee says, how old is Ozzy? Yep, Mr. Scott, I think probably beat me to it. December 3rd, 1948, age 74. Luke Wee, damn, he looks like hell. Grant, for someone named Yellen, I expect her to be yelling more. Cue Rimshot. Grant says, maybe stop spending so much. Mr. Scott says, lies, the government shuts down regularly, and it's very based when it does. But we'll make sure Ukraine gets its money before any of these groups. That's correct. And that's another thing that could get cut out of the budget. If we had an interest rate or, not interest rate, what am I thinking of? I just did a story on this, the debt ceiling crisis. We have a debt ceiling crisis. Hey, let's cut some of that, what's going over to Ukraine every month. Mr. Scott says, she's an evil banker. Here, take this money at 20% interest or die. What choice do you have? Grant, you're an evil banker. Someone should read her early life section. With Mr. Scott, when you're ready, you won't have to read the early life section. There's been a lot of editing in the early life section lately. Yeah, probably. Grant says, did you see the discussion section for the FTX guy? The editors openly admitted wanting to remove his ethnicity since the public image had become negative. Bankman-Fried's lawyers are worried about his public image. What a gas. Ron Helton's here with the sticker party. Mr. Scott says, I don't see Trump making it past the primaries. I actually think that he will. I do. Ron Helton says, Trump is a dumb chump. And also, good evening to everybody. Mr. Scott says he already trumped and dumped with his NFT cards. There's a single owner of a significant percentage of them. Gee, I wonder who that is. I wonder what his last name is. Ron says you could cut the military by about 80% for one thing. They're not supposed to have a standing army. Grant says there are a lot, but the biggest chunks of the budget are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and then the military. I don't know if the budget still looks this way, but you could cut the entire military budget and still have a deficit. Yes, you probably could. Ron Hill, the Inflation Acceleration Act. Grant, the Inflation Act. Mr. Scott, Inflating Inflation Act. Grant, oh no, tech layoffs, how could this happen? Something tells me the layoffs are going to make their workforce less diverse. Mr. Scott says, that's what happens when you diversity hire HR. Ruby Freeman probably still has a job in HR. Luke Lee says, I'm glad I stayed where I'm at. He says, I'm getting the hell out of here, work-wise. Scott says, Luke Lee, still haven't decided where I want to go. I don't know what it is that you are doing for work, but I know I just changed address to make a better fortune and a better life. At first I was full send to Alaska, but yeah, that's rough. Alaska would be cool. It's still on the list. I'd like to go there. The fishing industry has basically collapsed there, though, so that's going to be bad. That will trickle down, too. Yeah, Luke Wee is in road construction. He can go anywhere. Mr. Scott says, we have some hard freeze and thaw cycles in Denver. Potholes everywhere, like bad. You know, plenty of work. Mr. Scott said, how'd you get that job? And Luke Wee says, I got my CDL and decided I didn't want to do over the road, which is, I mean, an acceptable idea, too. And yeah, really, honestly, for most of what you do for road work, just your regular CDL will do. You might have to get a heavy haul depending on what road construction you're doing, but I mean, for the most part, if you're in a quad axle, you're good on just your regular Class A. Maybe your Class B even, I don't know. But now it costs a ton to get your CDL. Yeah, I'm glad I got mine when I did. Mr. Scott's studying for the ham radio license. The stuff is about to get revamped, and it's easier than ever right now. Colorful folks on there too, I'm sure. I've been on the CB. Grant says no one wanted Michael Sam on their team, that's why he was cut. Luke Wee says, yeah, that's on my list of things to learn more about and get my license. I grabbed a few cheap Baofeng radios to learn with. Anti-gay bigot. Yeah, this isn't an article with an agenda. You can tell some hateful leftist wrote this. Vampire Hunter D is here, says, nothing hateful, just annoying. Nah, that's hate, dude. Grant says, Tony Dungy is also a winner. Onions, now those I hate. Layers, donkey, layers. Luke, look, a sportscaster talking about nothing. Mr. Scott, good thing I'm a broccoli. I'm the smartest vegetable. Mr. Scott says, when was the last time they paid out a reward? I bet you there's some shady stuff dug up there. Yeah. Here's the deal. What the hell is with this guy? The nose rub. Yep. There you go. That's the other tell that Biden has. The nose rub. Mr. Scott says, where did they do these polls at? I was not consulted. I have a suspicion the numbers are BS. The laptop has the Hunter Wiener pics. That's ancient dirt. For anyone who's been paying attention, they all plug his book. What a load of BS. CNN should just change its name to Black Smoke. Yeah, that's a good one. Luke Wee says, this just proves it's not what you know, it's who you know. Always has been. Mr. Scott says the fact that everyone is so documented might bite the documenters in the butt. In the raspy words of Bob Dylan, times they are a-changin'. The old Mirror 23 skidoo. I don't see why the pro-choice people didn't see that as a win. That ruling basically said, we don't have the authority to tell you what to do with your unborn. Yeah, pretty much. Basically straight off the protest sign, they got what they wanted. The music is especially bad tonight. I like this music, but yeah, I know, for me, it's just something to have in the background that doesn't detract too much from the talking. Something, and I mean lo-fi. What is lo-fi? It's just elevated background music, essentially. Lady Room Talk, do tell. I feel like Howard Stern is here in spirit. Luke Wee says, women in politics, enough said. Beam me up, Mr. Scott said, didn't wash your hands. Mr. Scott says, not a good idea to make a deal about it. Wouldn't doubt if he sent it to himself. That's always a possibility. Hoax hate crime of the week. Beauty in the Beta style. Mr. Scott says, Kamala Harris will be the next president. Bet you $1. Only for a short time, followed by Michelle Obama getting elected. I do think Kamala Harris will be president at some point. That scares the shit out of me, but I think that she will. Her platform will be something like Healthy America or some such thing, by putting substandard nutrition onto plates at schools. This FAA stuff's interesting me. I hit the button. Hit the donate button. I didn't see anything on ADSB. Yeah, I don't know enough about FAA stuff. I don't know what ADSB is, but I'm going to look that up, by the way. Since then, I've seen military aircraft get doubled on ADSB. Yeah, it's unknowable stuff I don't want to know. Yeah, no, Mr. Scott, you've been doing well. I've been making an effort to be more positive. That's good. Yeah, everybody should be a bit more positive. I'm trying to positive about the news, but just when the government does so much stupid stuff, sometimes it's hard, you know? I'm diamond hands with my Doge. Yeah, I'm not letting mine go anywhere. I put a $20 bill in right as it was exploding. Like, I didn't get from the bottom to the top. I can admit that. I got in a little bit later than a lot of people did. But I made out all right, too. Like, it's not retirement money, but if there does happen to be some emergency somewhere, I could cash it out and probably take care of most emergencies. But not enough to buy a house with. Almost cashed it out to pay off the identity theft. But then they kept harassing me and hassling me about taking the stimulus check, so I took that instead and paid off the identity theft. And didn't touch my Doge. Alright, I think we're done here, you guys. I think we finished out for the day. Concurrent 6 throughout the entire stream. That was good. Good numbers there. On a date night, too. On a Friday night. That's not bad timing. Or that's not a bad view count. For a small show that used to be morning for it's almost an entire run. Still reeling in a new time slot. We did good. We got some word of mouth that's going to go on further, and we got to get some more live chatters in here. But yeah, I think we're going to do. I think this time slot's going to do well. I think we're going to do well here. The numbers averaging are increasing night after night, week after week. I'm happy with what we're doing here. Again, I still want to come back out and take some time and probably change the day of the week we do live chat because, again, in Wisconsin it's Fish Fry night. In most other states, it's the start of the weekend. It's date night. People want to go out and on the town and take other people out to dinner, etc. So if people happen to be... And honestly, one of the things that I've noticed too is that Friday is the slower night of the news as well because a lot of these news media outlets don't want to break stuff going into the weekend. So, we could take off and get out of here early, do another segment on Friday night, get out of here a little bit early, and maybe do the live chat from the week before on a Monday, perhaps. I think that would be a good one, but there's more discussion to be had about that. We'll figure out what's happening with that. But as for me, I do have to work in the morning, so let's get out of here for the night. And I'm starving. Oh man, am I hungry. Where's the outro music? There it is. Did I close my outro music? Is that a thing that I did? I did. All right, and with that, we're out of here for the night. Thanks everybody who came by, chatted with me throughout the night here, and throughout the week as well. That's always a good time. And yeah, the more messages we get in here, the more we get promoted, and the more people, the more we get promoted as well. So tell us, friends, let's get some more people in here. Share it out on your social media platforms. You have my full express permission to do so. And hey, go check out the other platforms as well. Facebook, DLive, Twitch. And I think I'm on Trovo again, by the way. I went back and did that again. So yeah, we've got that here. So come back and join me in all those as we continue to try to grow the show. Throughout the next few weeks, I'm going to sit down and make a concerted effort to try to get us onto Rumble and Odyssey. We will not be able to thread the chats together. So keep that in mind. You won't be able to chat back and forth with your Rumble and Odyssey friends, but we can go back and add this to see if we can grow the channel over there as well, and get some of the Rumble and Odyssey people over on the other platforms as well if they want to come back and chat with everybody too. So that's something that'll be coming down the pipes as well, but that is a story for another time. We're out of here for the night. Thanks everybody again. We will see you here next time. If you're on the Twitch side, which it doesn't, I think I'm just the only one on Twitch side right now. But if you happen to be over there, stick around. We'll go find somebody to raid, and we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.